Everybody, welcome to week 2 of the B League Pick'ems show. Everybody, here we go. We're here for another Underdog Pick'ems week with your boy here, Dan at the B League Says. You can find me on X if you want. I'm not even going to promote it anymore. That's what I'm going to do. Hardcore like that. Down with X. Not going to do it. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to promote X anymore unless you're following the Underdog stuff over there, I guess. I think I'm just going to tell everyone to come over to our Discord now. That's it. It's a free Discord. It's blowing up at the moment. Our Discord over there. It's a free Discord. Not many of them are free. I don't know of many Discords that are free. I think everyone should come over there and get amongst your sportsbook chat over there. I think it's a great place to be. Whoa. Big brown dog in the house. Here we go, Jamie. How about them Browns? Look at that. Love it. Get around the Browns. Love it. Watson firing off. I might even talk about them. Actually, I wanted to talk about the Browns later, but their props hadn't even dropped. Who knows? By the end of this, we might go over that. We'll do some ad-lib. Let's see how that is going. What's up, Gladys? Good to see your amazing person, your amazing self on Monday night with the 2-point conversion. Every Monday night with Kyle and sometimes a Doc and Gladys. We hit. Gladys went 3 for 3 on her props for the Jets and Bills game. How about them apples? We like them apples. Well done, Gladys. Big week for you. Sucks to be Kyle. Unlucky, buddy. Either way. As always, you can subscribe on our YouTube. Please share this around. Going for Two is a pretty big network. We've got an awesome show lined up tonight with Ryan and Jeff. I'm going to say Ryan's names first until I start to get some music. Thanks, Jeff. For nothing. We got the fight going. Fight. Yes, fight. Hey, look at this. Gladys, you ready for the Browns to beat the Steelers this week? In a fight, I back Gladys 9 times out of 9. Unlucky, Jamie. Good luck with that. I like a little banter in the chat. We love it. Welcome, everybody, one more time again. As again, if you want to come follow me on X or Twitter, it's at the B League Says. Find me over on Discord, our free Discord going for 2 server on the same name. You can do that. As always, you can follow us on YouTube, subscribe, share, hit the alerts when your favorite shows pop off. I'm absolutely missing the Speak On It boys. They've been off for a couple of weeks. Makes my Wednesday morning trip into work a whole lot more fun, but hey, it is what it is. As always, if you're new to the show, I basically look at a few of the games during the week and see some props per game, how they work and whatnot. Normally, I start off with going over some of the Vegas lines and whatnot, and that's how we go as well. Normally, I break it down from the morning props, the afternoon props, and the evening props, and I'll try and cross-reference that because sometimes the lines do change. So for a little bit of due diligence, please, as always, hey, we're all about going for two an Underdogs partnership. Promo code GF2, 100% matching deposit, up to $100 on your initial deposit. Please do due diligence and cross-reference through other sites because you might be getting a bargain elsewhere or getting hammered where you're at. So check Thrive, check Prize Picks, check DK, check your bookies, and obviously your casino places like Caesars and all that. So check what they're offering too, because normally other places might be quicker to adapt or slow, and you can find an edge that way as well. I'll give your quarterback 4 sacks. Yeah, pick it going down for 4. Yeah, I think that might be about right. Either way, enough of the niceties in here. We're going to crack straight into it. I'm having a look at a few of the games this week. Baltimore-Cincinnati at 46.5. I really like Joe Mixon this week to go over on his touchdown. But I think he's had like a stupid amount of 5 receiving touchdowns, I think, in his last 4 games. I want to give or take on that. He's basically been cracking off against the Bengals over the past few matches. I'll tell you that much. I think he's had 9 total touchdowns against them in 11 games, but 7 of them come in the last 3 or 4. So something stupid like that. Check that out as well. I really like that one for him because that's the game that we're going to go over. I did like Seattle and Detroit at 47.5. Interesting game. I think a lot of people are going to overreact to a lot of what Detroit did on Thursday night, and they're going to overreact a little bit to what Seattle didn't do against the Rams. So a bit of movement in that direction, I feel like people might be overreacting. Vegas versus Buffalo at 46.5, I find is interesting. I think make what you want of the Bills. It was tough weather. I'm not going to tell you that the weather conditions in New York, I live out this way, it was pretty bad that whole week. And what I saw on Monday night, I think I said it on our broadcast on Monday, it wasn't great. I was surprised the game was even going on. There was lightning through the day. It was pretty rough, so it was what it was in that regard. Chargers at, where are we here? It's not Tampa. It's Miami. No. Chargers are at Tampa. Over under 45.5. That's a weird one. Tampa's not doing anything again, but 20 points, maybe they can. Oof. I don't even want to think about Tampa. I can tell you now, we're going to have 17 weeks of Dan not talking about Tampa as much as he can. I want no part of that. But again, game picks for the morning. I am going to hammer on Baltimore and Seattle at 46.5. I thought that was an interesting game. Division rivalries are normally lower scoring, so to see 46.5, even for me, you look at some of the other ones that, like, I feel like that. Where was it? I've got that Pittsburgh Browns game down here. Where was it earlier today? It was at 39.5. So the over-under on, or the line for 30 is 39.5 for the Cleveland at Pittsburgh game, which I'm not too surprised about at all. That makes a lot of sense. But to see 46.5 between Baltimore and Cincinnati, Baltimore, they were tough to watch last week. They were brutal, huh? So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with your higher and lowers because I can't say over and under. Thank you, underdog, and your shitty vernacular. Can't do that anymore. But either way, we're going to get going. Lamar Jackson, I'm going to hit on this week, higher than 53.5 rushing yards. I think they're going to go back to the well. Look, no J.K. Dobbins. I'm going to call it for what it is. It's a mediocre backfield after that. I don't care what you say about Melvin Gordon, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill. They're mid. They're a bunch of mid dudes. You can replace them with like Matt Breida, and it'd be the same thing. It doesn't matter. They're just guys that are going to do whatever they do, and I feel like they're going to have to give it to Lamar Jackson going forward a bit more than often than not. Past record of success against the Bengals as well on the ground. Only twice in 8 games has he had under 50 rushing yards. Hasn't been under 58 in his last 3, and has 2 games over 100 in that span of time as well. After last week's, again, whatever you want to call that, I can see them adjusting, and they're going to go back to the well on what he's good at. And, unfortunately, he is amazing at running the ball. He's a good quarterback, can throw really nice too. But I think they're going to have to utilize him on the ground a bit more this week. He wasn't really there last week. It was kind of weird to watch. It was just, I don't even know what to make of that game, to be honest. I want to say, oh, yeah, that's normal. Like, it's great for Zay Flowers. Like, that's cool. Beckham kind of stood up a bit as well. That was nice to see too. I'm glad to see him come back and make a bit of a recovery in that regard. But, any more than that, I'm not really thinking Bateman. Okay, maybe they get Mark Andrews back and he does a little bit more. Jackson last week, I'm just looking again. Yeah, 38 rushing yards. He can cross that pretty quickly. Jamie says Browns 34-3 against the Steelers. That's just mean. 34 what? Like total yards? Passing yards? I'm just trying to figure out what Kenny Pickett's going to do. Might be the size of 3.5 or 3.4 might be the size of his hands. I'm just trying to figure it out. Pickett, 34-3 to the Browns. Nah. I think this will go over, actually. I think Deshaun Watson looked pretty good last week. He looked all right. A bit more of himself, a bit more intent. What happened to whatever he did last year, he looked a bit nervous on the pitch. I think he looks a bit more comfortable within his skin, which is probably a bad thing for the Masuas. Anyway, pick number 2, Joe Mixon, higher than half a receiving and rushing touchdown. I said before, Mixon, for all intents, in 11 games, hasn't had the best success against the Ravens, although except for that touchdown column, with 4 on the ground and 5 through the air in totality. But however, 7 of those 9 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 4 through the air, have come in his last 4 games. So he's been hammering them the last 4 games. So, again, 3 on the ground, 4 in the air have come in his last 4 games, 7 in 9. So that's hard to argue at this point. I think he's going to score on the ground this week. And, he might have to, considering the way Joe Burrow played a week ago. Pick number 3, Jamar Chase, lower than 80.5 receiving yards. Dan, you're crazy. Yeah, I get that. And people want Burrow to have a bit of a get-right game, but the reality is this week's opponent is as hard as the last. And a get-right game against the Ravens, I've never heard of it before. When do people have a get-right game against Baltimore? You know what? We got absolutely thrashed last week. We've got a weaker opponent in Baltimore. We're going to be all right. Off the top of my head, I feel like he had 3 picks to Darius Slay last year. They played the Eagles in primetime, right? So Kirk Cousins, we're looking at this. How many will he throw in prime time? They play the Eagles. I feel like Justin Jefferson had one reception for 6 yards last year. I think that was the game he absolutely got belted. And Darius Slay had 2 to 3 picks. I can't remember. I'd love for someone to correct me on that. Why don't I have a Kyle? The Speak On It guys have a Kyle. Why don't I have a Kyle in the chat doing this for me? Unbelievable. Anyway, Jamar Chase lower than 80.5 receiving yards. Yeah, I think that's a bit high after what happened last week. I'm really not backing into the idea that they can rebound that easily. Even Burrow's line of 265, 266 and a half now. I feel like that's a little high as well. Maybe around that 250 mark's about right. I think it's going to be a slower game than we anticipate. Baltimore hold the ball really well too. So normally, I don't know what last week was, but normally they hold the ball really well. I don't think it's going to be like. You are correct, Sir Slay. Oh, wow. Sir Slay owns JJ. Well, that's a nice name for him. Very good. Thank you very much, Gladys. Yeah, so I feel like Jamar Chase's numbers, if they can come down a little bit, maybe into the 70s, low 70s, 72, 73, probably want to give that a touch up. But, 80, I don't know. It might be a tough one against the Ravens. Either way. Game picks for the afternoon. We've been waffling a little bit today. These two are squabbling. Look at you two squabbling. Jamie and Gladys squabbling, getting in a fight in that chat. I love it. Get amongst it. Game picks for the afternoon. I am going to go with San Fran at the Rams at 44.5 points. I think that one can go over. I think San Fran can dust up everyone. Isn't that right, Gladys? We saw enough of that last week to know otherwise. Other games in the afternoon slot we're looking at New York and Arizona, whatever. Not even going to talk about the Giants and Cardinals. We're just going to save our breath on that one. Washington at Denver could be interesting. Denver had moments last week, and so did Washington. They showed that they weren't good, but they showed that they weren't just completely trash either way. Speaking of trash, Zach Wilson and the Jets go to Dallas. All these games I've just mentioned are all under 40 points, and I feel like Dallas could cover that by themselves against the Jets. Well, they didn't. If this was their line last week against the Giants, they wouldn't have, because they would have had to get 41, which they didn't. Unlucky. Either way. We're going to go with Fran and the Rams. We're going to have a look at some of these props for the afternoon. Thank you, Tequila. We're going to have a look at Brandon Ayuk. We're going to go higher than 55.5 receiving yards. I feel like that's come up a point or two, but either way, it is what it is. Look, what can't he do? This guy's an animal. I think Brandon Ayuk, for whatever is said about San Fran and what they have going on, Brandon Ayuk could be quite possibly my favorite player in the NFL at the moment. He is unbelievable. Whatever they did to him, I think it was last year, sat him for the bench for seven weeks, whatever the hell that was. I feel like Ayuk is in this place where he can do no wrong at this point. I really feel like he's just running amok. 6 receptions, 40 yards, so 2 interceptions. Okay, so he did have, I had the number 6 in there. I was close. So that's where I'm at with Brandon Ayuk at this point. Look, week 1, double-digit targets, over 100 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns in a game that should have been closer. I feel like that. I'm not going to characterize what Pittsburgh did last week and say that's the norm. I feel like they just played a better team on a bad week, and that was it. That bad week happened to be week 1. It is what it is. Here we are. I can see the Rams giving the 49ers the same sort of problems, but I feel like the Rams are closer to Pittsburgh than they are San Fran at this point, which isn't a bad thing. The Rams looked decent last week. They were surprisingly decent. They still have some good pieces. It was just a question on how that receiving game was going to work. Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell showed us what it was. So I can see that being that as well. Lockett Metcalf, they did give the Rams a little bit of problem last week. It started off all right for them, and then it kind of just faded away. And I feel like CMC will get a lot of the attention again after 151 yards in the ground last week. So I feel like that's going to be all right. Look, in 2 of his last 3 matchups versus division rival, the Rams, he's clocked over 80 receiving yards twice in his last 3 games. So that's 81 and 107 in 2 of his last 3. So I feel like Ayuk's got a bit of form on his side against his opponent this week, and I feel like that's going to continue, especially after last week, showing that Debo can come up with a big splash play, and so can Kittle, I guess. Kittle's kind of off George Kittle a little bit lately. I don't know if anyone else is, but yeah, I feel like Ayuk's starting to really establish himself, aside from McCaffrey, at least in the passing game, as the top guy. Pick number 2, we're going to go with Matthew Stafford, lower than 228.5 yards. It seems like a weird one after last week. But again, I feel like we're talking about a different kettle of fish at the moment. Again, that's no disrespect to the Steelers. Sorry, Gladys. I'm going to have to keep reiterating myself. I don't feel like the Steelers are bad. I just feel like San Fran are just that good at the moment. And I feel like the same thing is going to be said about the Rams this week. I don't think Seattle was bad. I just thought the Rams were just a little bit better. I don't think that is enough to compete with the 49ers at the moment. So, yeah, it isn't a shaky, Seahawks secondary or erratic team. This is a Super Bowl favorite at this point. He's in for a tough day. I feel like he's going to have to hold on to the ball a little bit too long, and he's not really as mobile as he used to. So escaping like the guys like Bosa and whoever else, like Jackson and all those sorts of guys, I don't think that's going to work out in his favor. I think he's going to get caught a little bit too often. Look, I know Atwell, he's quick and they can get creative with him. So gaining separation won't be a problem for him, but maybe it is for Van Jefferson, Higbee, and Puka Nacua. I just think it's going to be a tough day coming. So sub 228.5 yards for him. Pick number 3, we're going to go Brock Purdy. We're going to go higher than 217.5 passing yards. I feel like I want to add a caveat in because obviously not all the props have dropped in. When the prop comes for over 1.5 passing touchdowns, we can smash that as well. I think 230 is a comfortable marker for him each week for the second-year starter. He's not really going to blow the stat line up unless Debo and McCaffrey, kind of get that ridiculous yak that they're known for. Like a lot of it's them doing the work for him. I think anyone can see that. But, numbers count. We can pad the stats all we want. And, hey, if he's going to throw it 1 yard sideways that isn't what we think it is, and they take it for 70, that really goes towards his total. And how can we complain when we're betting on him, right? So we're going to go with Brock Purdy over 217.5. When the time comes, we can go over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I don't see that being a problem for him. The primetime games. We're going to have a look at these primetime games. I'm going to log into Underdog at the moment because we had a little bit of a problem here. I was looking at that Cleveland-Pittsburgh game as the game I wanted to touch on, except the stats hadn't dropped for that at all. So we're going to, and they still haven't. That is a shame. So there's still no props for Cleveland and Pittsburgh Monday night game, except there's only 2 for New Orleans, Carolina, which is about an hour early. And for all intents, we got a doubleheader for the 2-point conversion Monday night with Kyle, Gladys, me, and sometimes the Doc, which should be fun at 7 o'clock this week. Maybe a little bit early. The guys might start a bit earlier without me. I won't be there that quickly. So the other game that is remaining that we're going to talk about, obviously there was New England at Miami for 46.5. New Orleans at Carolina for 40, which I feel is very friggin' generous because Carolina, good Lord. And obviously I wanted to go to Cleveland-Pittsburgh. That's at 39.5 at the moment, but I am going to talk about New England at Miami because I can't talk about that one, which would have been interesting to see what Watson's numbers, Cooper more, if Cooper's even playing. Would have been interesting to see what Chubb's numbers were. Even the Pittsburgh guys, it would have been weird to see what happened with Deontay Johnson maybe being out. I don't know if he's out. He's probably out. To see what would have happened to like maybe Austin or Robinson or Pickens, just to see how those numbers would have affected a guy like Najee Harris who went missing for all it was. Pick number 1. Here we go. We're going to talk about this one. There is a pick and bonus I think everyone should know about for Tua Tagovailoa. It was at 270.5 yards. I have taken the higher. I think he's going higher on this one quite easily. And that's not to say that it should be easy against the Patriots. I don't think it will be. But, Hill and Waddle are just difference makers that can do it for you. He doesn't have to go off for them to go off. It's just the reality of it is 450 passing yards. Week 1 is a nice way to go off. Don't get me wrong. But here we are. I feel like they're just built a little bit different from Brown and Smith, as would be speed kills. And they will. I think they're going to just teach them a bit of a lesson this week. They're going to dust them up, especially in their home opener. They can't be given an inch. And, you look at great minds, the Mike McDaniel going up against Bill Belichick again. I feel like, both teams are pretty healthy outside of maybe the odd injury here or there to the Patriots guys. Maybe Devontae Parker, but maybe revenge game for Devontae Parker. Can't argue with that. But, I think those two, I think Hill and Waddle are going to drum up enough space and they're just going to have one, I think. Pick number 2, I feel like, again, I don't want to overreact to last week, but I feel like his hand is going to be forced a little bit more. And Mac Jones, we're going to go higher than 224.5 passing yards versus Miami. Look, I feel like he's going to be playing catch-up. And from what we saw last week, as opposed to last year, that's not the end of the world. Look, Jones punched out nearly 60 passing attempts for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a near-come-from-behind win versus Philly. And it was pretty good. And he got that out of, Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry and, of all people, Keyshawn Butte. It's hard to get anything out of guys like that, and yet here he was getting things out of guys like that. Obviously, Stevenson chipping in for 6 for 65. I'll talk about him in a second. That's huge. I don't doubt that that's going to have to happen again. I feel like they're going to have to play a similar game to a team that they're going to have to struggle to keep up with, and that's a good thing. We want him to chase from behind and put up those numbers, and that's a good thing. Let him dump it off to Zeke and Stevenson and go from there. It wasn't the week to get away with it last week against Philly. Obviously, Philly on the ground are pretty tough to beat at the best of times. It was what it was, and here they are again, probably in a more open game. Miami's defense is pretty damn good still. I know what happened last week, but here we are. Yeah, there we go. Jared, here we go. The DFS King made his debut on Friday night with Tim and Jeff. Good showing for the young blood. Love it. Pick number 3 for this week. We're going to go Ramondre Stevenson. Lower than 55.5 rushing yards. Yeah, I know the success that Eckler and Kelly had between them. They punched about 200 rushing yards, so to go lower is almost suicidal. But I'm here for the thrill of the chase. That's what we're here for, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go the other way around. I feel like people are going to be smashing the over on this because of what happened last week. So please don't bet on that right now. Give it a few more days. That number's going to rise up pretty quickly, I think. So keep that in mind. Look, between Ramondre and Zeke last week, they failed to log 20 combined rushing attempts, and they failed to combine for 60 rushing yards between them. Stevenson on the ground was quite disappointing. But again, 6 for 65, I think he got, off 6 receptions. Yeah, 6 for 65, I feel like he had last week. That's no joke. So I could see him racking it up again. They're going to be chasing this game. It's going to be through the air, hopefully, and that's the way that they're going to exploit Miami as much as they can. One more time, I'm going to go over these bets that I've went with and then my 3 favorite picks to get around, because you should get around them. We're going to go to that morning game. We're going to have a look at Baltimore at Cincinnati, 46.5 line. We're going to go Jackson higher than 53.5 rushing yards. Mixon higher than a half a receiving rushing touchdown. Jamar Chase lower than 80.5 receiving yards. In the afternoon, we're going Brandon Ayuk higher than 55.5 receiving yards. Matt Stafford lower than 228.5 passing yards. Brock Purdy higher than 217.5 passing yards. Pivot to 1.5 passing touchdowns higher as well. We're going to hit that afternoon game, or that evening game, primetime game, as it would be. We're going to take that pick and bonus. Check out Underdog, promo code GF2, 100% matching deposit up to $100. There is a Tua Tagovailoa prop there as well for 270. We're going to go higher on that for him. Mac Jones higher than 224.5 passing yards, and Ramondre Stevenson lower than 55.5 rushing yards. My 3 favorite bets, I feel like at the moment that I'm going to go is I just love the Mixon half a receiving rushing touchdown. I think he's on this week. It's going to be Mixon menacing the neighborhood again. Just, hopefully it's on the field. For what it's worth, Mixon, yeah, just keep it there. We're going to go half in that regard. Brandon Ayuk higher than 55.5 receiving yards. I feel like that's criminal. Same with Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman's going to go blow up the Texans this week. Pittman, I think, has been quoted for like 58.5. Punched out nearly 100 last week, and he's their only receiver of note. There's no running backs. That game's a smash for him to go nuts against Houston. They lost who? Who they lose? They lost Jalen Pitra and what's his name? Ward. They lost Ward as well, I think, and they're left with like Eric Murray. So Michael Pittman's going to have a big game. Check that into your DFS. I expect to hear about Michael Pittman in your DFS this week, Jared, please, and thank you. We're going to go Ramondre Stevenson again, lower than 55.5 rushing yards. They're the 3 that I'm leaning on the most this week. Before I go, we punched out 25 minutes. How about them apples? Fantastic. Underdog, GF2, promo code, 100% matching deposit, up to $100 on your initial deposit. Then come into our Discord, the free Discord, at Going for 2, and we can talk about that in the sports bet section. I'm sweating like a cucumber in a COVID. The aircon blew out. I can barely see. I'm sweating through my eyes. Oh, my God. Either way, come join us in the Discord in the sports bet section. We can talk about all the props in there. I'm going to post the show. I think I've already posted the show. Come check it out, all that sort of jazz. You know what to do. YouTube, subscribe, hit the alerts. Come find this show every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. That's what we're here for. And you can always find us on Twitter at Going for 2 Live. I'm at the B-League Says. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers and bye. Where's that end record button? There's the end stream button. And bye for now. Cheers. Bye.